Companies exist to serve their customers, but when employees are busy working, this basic idea may be overlooked. But now more than ever, with changing markets and fierce competition, knowing your customers, listening to them, and meeting their needs becomes absolutely essential.
I think people have to know that the quality is what counts. You have to build that machine like you were purchasing it.
And our philosophy is if one customer buys a car that has one problem on it, as far as that customer is concerned, every car that we've produced could have the same problem on it.
Everybody on the floor, on everything he works or she works on, should know the end use of that item.
We should satisfy our customers, those internal to the company as well.
Another customer you satisfy is the person sitting right next to you. Am I satisfying that individual? So you look at it that way. Then, am I satisfying the individual that I work for on this? What do they expect of me?
So if we all satisfy the next person in the process, we'll end up with a product which everyone's satisfied with.
Whether it has to do with literally the end user of our product, or whether it becomes me as a manager, or whether it becomes the individual that's actually working it. So this total customer satisfaction really spreads all around, and you just have to keep redefining from moment to moment who your customer really is. And in some cases, it can even be carried so far as say, I'm my own customer.
Satisfying your customer will also mean addressing their problems.
To me, it might seem like a small problem, but to the person that actually has that problem, it could be a large problem. Every problem needs dealt with individually and needs some countermeasure individually. So I think that's one of the key successes here at Honda of America, is dealing with each problem on an individual basis.
If they can satisfy the customer with good service and good quality, our plant will be here for years to come.
Satisfying the customer should be the goal for everyone, regardless of his or her title or position.
Whether it be an accounting clerk dealing in payroll, or a security guard at the front desk, or a cafeteria worker, or an operations associate, or an engineer, when they finally come to grips with this total customer satisfaction, that they have an obligation to serve that customer, we've reached the point we want to go to.
What we are saying here is that when everyone serves his customers better, it benefits the entire organization, or even the whole society. In the case of nations, people are the customers from the government's point of view, and their increased voices can drive the changes, just like we have seen in the Eastern Bloc countries. Of course, there are hurdles, but wouldn't it be worthwhile to try to overcome them with everyone involved? As customers, we drive the economy by buying goods and services. And we also work as suppliers in our jobs, providing goods and services. So if we are all sincere about customer satisfaction, we should be able to chart our course for the future.
Our future and our future service is dependent on how well we serve customers and customer needs. And that as we look at the future and as we think about what we have to do in our future success in this plant, it's not dependent on marks on your cane associated with service to General Electric. It's marked on your canes in terms of what I have done to bring good things to life and what I have done to provide valued products to our customers.
Satisfying the customer is not the same as satisfying the management.
They, in a sense, have learned that the customer is the person they're dealing with and not management. And they're more apt to get the product out better with the quality because of that.
To clarify customer-supplier relationships as a group, developing a chart can be helpful. This example was developed by the people at the stockroom. Here the arrows indicate the direction of customers.
But what we come to learn through our discussions was that nearly every supplier was a customer in some way because they needed some information from us in order to supply us what it was we were looking for.
As we study more, we'll find that a customer-oriented organization is different from a traditional type of organization. A traditional organization chart may look like this. The driving forces here are hierarchical, and the structure is rigid. On the other hand, a customer-oriented organization looks different. Here, the lines illustrate customer-supplier linkages, and the driving force is customer-based, and the structure is flexible.
In some cases in the past, goals and objectives were set because a particular manager needed it to happen, not necessarily because it's what the customer needed to have happen.
It's not who reports to who, it's how the work gets done more efficiently. How do we get communication to get resources? How do we assure that the proper problems are being addressed? If that's the role of the organization, to sort those out and make the right decisions, then let's make the organization fit what the work we want to do, as opposed to, well, I ought to have a shop manager and he ought to have a general foreman, he has to have foreman, and so forth.
So instead of building an organization to serve its own interests, the organization should follow the need to satisfy customers, both internal and external. Since this requires changes in our thinking, some people may feel uncomfortable, but if we put ourselves in the customer's shoes, wouldn't we prefer to deal with such an organization?
Here, a company president learned this lesson when he was shuffled around to several different doctors trying to find a cure for his earache. From this frustrating experience, he came up with an idea for a new customer service department.
To have one person in the office, and their goal is to treat you. And if it's good, you want to place an order, they're going to help you. If you owe money, they're going to call you. If you get bad merchandise, they're going to take care of you. And that was our goal. Again, very difficult. How do you get one person to wear all these hats? How do you hire somebody? What qualifications do I want? Do you have to be good on the phone? Or you have to be good at collections? And it's very difficult. But I felt I'd rather me be the victim than the customer.
In the next example, the people established a so-called quick turn department to respond to customer needs, offering 24-hour delivery of certain parts.
So this really opened the door up for Wilbert Company to become an explosive company as far as overnight parts being delivered on time to print specification. And at the same time, this also allowed us to work very close with our engineering department to solve any problems before it got into the production area.
Thus, an organization may need to be restructured to better focus on the customer.
We develop product focus groups that are responsible for the profitability of a specific group of products. In that process, they communicate with each other in a very tight unit in itself. They are almost like mini companies in themselves. They have a manager assigned to the product group who is responsible to the overall division management for the profitability of that product group.
The point of those groups or mini companies is to address customer needs as quickly as possible.
And if we can solve the problem at that level rather than just escalate it up through management, things I think get done much quicker. And so they were introduced, and now we have people on our line that do call our supplier.
To understand our customers better, both external and internal, a customer survey may be conducted regularly.
The person that is giving us information has an effect on our ability to perform our work well.
The customers of the cell are given an opportunity to rate this cell with a form such as this, which gives them an opportunity to rate the timeliness and reliability, quality of the products, responsiveness to the customer needs, communications with the customer, and the overall supplier rating that that customer will give to this cell as a supplier.
In order to address key problems effectively, our next example shows the customer and supplier working jointly as a team.
Customer service has a very difficult time getting the good information to relate to our customer. So they pick the production as a vendor. Between two departments, they came up to 6 different categories. They had a problem, and they approached one at a time.
As this customer-supplier team progressed, many old barriers began to crumble.
I think before it was very strict and very narrow. I don't want to say narrow-minded, but very narrow in this is my job, that's her job, and so on. It's more like, okay, my job falls over into their job, and unless I do my job and am very much aware of what I'm doing, they're not going to be able to do their job to their potential. And I think a lot of that happens that we're now thinking in terms of the flow and not just getting it off my desk and onto somebody else's.
A lot of times you get a lot of frustration, a lot of stress in this job, especially with customer service reps, and this kind of keeps the walls knocked down and keeps communication going.
This interface with customers gives a person a better perspective about the customer's needs.
I feel if I wasn't doing this, I'd kind of be just going one direction and kind of sheltering myself. But this, you know, makes me a lot more rounded. Like a ripple effect, you drop the drop of water and it spreads out into production and everybody else, and it just gives you an awareness of what you do affects everybody else in the plant and so forth.
If we are concerned about our customers, we should offer assistance, even without being asked.
I'm a maintenance man in an insertion cell. The operators are my main support for my main customers. I support them of making sure the machines run up to par. This board is to help explain to them the machine's functions and what I do to the machine.
We can also look at new employees as customers. Here, in order to explain basic manufacturing principles, friendly educational materials were developed.
Susie Square is a character within this comic book. And Andy Andon is also another character in the comic book, and Terry the traffic light is our narrator. He's introducing you to his cousins, other signals and other tools. Part of that was, most of the people's response was that it was very humorous and very informative.
At Matsushita, people are using visual displays to share quality information.
These are displays of quality defects, such as careless mistakes. As these are returned from the market, we display them so that each employee can learn the lesson.
And because their finished products are purchased by the employees, a model Japanese house was built inside the factory to generate new ideas.
We ask many people to check our product's performance. All good ideas are fed back to the designers.
As we develop better customer orientation, the whole organization responds more like a human nervous system. Our autonomous nervous system, for example, quickly responds to stimuli, yet requires minimum central control. Since such autonomous control is much needed in today's fast-paced business environment, let's see how we may practice this idea company-wide. Now, if I'm a supervisor here on this chart, I have my customers and suppliers. I may also think of myself as the president, having my managers as bankers and my operators as employees. If I'm an operator, then my supervisor will be my banker, and my tools and my equipment are my employees. This arrangement, which I call the mini company, should apply similarly throughout the company. What this means is that if each unit of organization or mini company can accomplish its primary mission to satisfy its customers, then the entire organization can accomplish its overall mission to better serve the ultimate customers. Also, if everyone views themselves as the president or owner of their area of responsibility, then they will develop pride to run their mini companies more like a shop floor entrepreneurs.
We start with a mission, which is essentially why are we here? Why are we a team? Then we have roles. I need to understand what your role is, and you need to understand what my role is. Then you have procedures, which is how we go about doing things. Everyone understands.
Well, I've asked each of our departments to create their own mission statement and their own business plan, just as if they were their own company. Kind of the next step beyond that is to push that down a level further in the organization. And I envision a time when each employee in the company will have, in effect, their own mission and their own customers and suppliers, and will envision themselves as being their own president of their own company.
To stimulate communication and promote teamwork, it is important to involve the people when developing a business plan.
That in itself took a long time, because when you sit down for the first time to do it, even though you believe everyone in the same group really understands what they're doing, there's a lot of different ideas. Some of the discussions get very heated, but I think in the end everyone agreed to what they were there for.
Involving the people in developing the business plan can also create an environment of mutual learning.
The people in this company, and the people, specifically the people who are involved with this process, are getting a boost in their motivation through the process to be more competitive, and not only to do their jobs as they knew them, but to work on redesigning their jobs through this process to be more effective. We've learned a lot about the things that we do, the things that we don't do, and how they interact with other parts of the company. How sometimes we were doing the same thing somebody else was doing, and in effect creating some waste because we had multiple people going down the same path. We also learned that there were some things that weren't getting done as completely as they needed to get done in order to support others in the organization, our customers, organizational customers, in the way that they needed to be supported to do their jobs.
They really are starting to really see themselves as this company that's doing business and starting to think, we are a company, what's the best way for us to do business? What's the smartest way?
As more people take ownership in satisfying their customers, their roles and responsibilities will change.
Instead of being rewarded for my own direct actions, how I feel I'm successful is by making sure that people have the information that they need or the resources they need to get their job done.
What we have now is the team, starting from the goals and the needs of our customers, establishing their objectives in concert with higher levels of the organization, of course. But the supervisor now becomes a support person and not the director or the controller. And that's a tough shift for a lot of supervisors to make. But when they make it, they feel very good about it because they are providing more value out of their position than they feel like they have in the past.
I am not directing actions. I am making sure that I motivate people to work in the right direction and making sure that they have everything they need to get the job done.
What this customer orientation means is that if we truly understand our customers, both internal and external, and pursue ways to satisfy them, then we shouldn't have bureaucratic barriers in our organization.
The key problem with the traditional management styles that we had here was that it was inflexible, that it wasn't able to change rapidly enough to meet the dynamic needs of our market.
Although there may be less structure in the traditional sense, a shared vision of customer satisfaction can tie the whole company together.
It's more or less a controlled chaos that you live in, and it's a very unique environment to live in. It's very rewarding, and each and every day you find a new challenge and a new opportunity and new issues coming up that are very exciting. Whereas historically you came in and you built some boundaries, you come in today and you tear them down.
You get a consistency over time and a consistency from department to department of shared values, and an outsider looking in on the organization gets the same sort of treatment, at least ideally, from someone in customer service or someone in engineering or someone in sales, because we all share the same vision of how we relate to our customers.
As we practice these ideas, we may find a change in people's behavior.
An employee will come up to you asking for you to replace some key element of the process, even if it's a screwdriver, a wrench, a pair of pliers, or something like that. The only question that's necessary to ask that individual is, are these things necessary for the pursuit of the basic goal? And basic goal being to provide the customer with the highest possible quality is the only question necessary to be asked. Not, is it justifiable? Do you really need it? The question is it part of the process of providing that customer with quality?
So the people asked right at the outset, they said, can we take that wall down? Well, why did they want to take the wall down? Improve communication, improve flow, all kinds of good reasons. You don't want a door where you don't need a door. This was a major thing, so I said, yeah, you can take the wall down. Well, here's an example of trust. Historically, King had always said, you've got to have that wall. Just don't ask him. I said, take the wall down if you really think you want to do it. A couple weeks went by. They said, okay, we really want to take the wall down, can we? Yeah, take the wall down. They took the wall down, improved the communications. What had happened was they had analyzed the reasons for the wall, found that most of them didn't exist, had one tiny little concern, and they took care of that.
To achieve total customer satisfaction, we need to work on improving communication, upgrading problem-solving skills, and other things which we'll be discussing later. But the most basic idea to remember here is that we cannot afford to focus just on our own interests.
The only way that this can be accomplished is through the teamwork of our people, especially those closest to the action and closest to the product.
We're learning that teamwork among all the players in the factory or in the business is important for the success of the business, and we're learning to support each other and interface with each other better. We're learning to cut out some of the overlaps that we were doing so that we're not tripping over each other's feet and arguing with each other in areas that really are not our own personal expertise.
Once you've defined to the workforce that the objective is clearly customer-driven, explaining the reason for that customer-driven environment is very simple. If we can satisfy our customer, we then satisfy ourselves and improve our own personal security in the workplace.